Hi everyone, I hope you guys are doing okay. Today I'm going to be explaining another one of React hooks, which is useActionState. So I'm going to be explaining how easy handling forms are with the hook useActionState. We do not need to worry about any of the states, pending actions or errors. So all of that is going to be controlled by just one hook. So basically in my previous video I have explained about how we can use transition hook. So I would really recommend, I will attach that video in the card so you guys can see once. Check that out and then come back to this one, because I think knowing use transition is also as important as knowing use action state is. So basically earlier I had created this very simple and very basic form which has just one input, which is this input. It takes the value of the name and then again set it in a state with on change event, and then there is submit button which doesn't do literally anything but calling a submit action, which after 2 seconds just gets resolved. So basically this was a simple example form in order to show how transition works. So now basically we are going to control and do everything in this form with the help of useActionState. Alright, so firstly what I'm going to do is I want you guys to know firstly is that I'm on React 19 RC version. So I would recommend you guys to also switch to that version before trying to copy my code. So basically I'm going to create use that hook, which is useActionState, and now I'm going to import it from React useActionState. So now basically the first thing it gives us is a state. So this state could be anything literally that we want to store, like an error or a success state. It could be literally anything we want to store after the form action is completed. The second thing it gives us is basically the submit action. So this needs to be the function which will get called when we hit the submit button. And the third thing it gives us is basically the pending state. So we can name it anything. I'm going to name it is pending, exactly how we named it earlier. Now this hook basically use action state. Let me remove the transition hook and remove this as well. So now basically earlier that we started the transition before after calling the submit function. So now I'm going to remove the transition code entirely. Now this hook, the first argument to this hook it demands is basically the submit handler. So this is currently our submit handler. So what I'm going to do is completely cut this code from here, and I'm going to create like an async method here and then put this entire code inside that function. Now basically what I'm going to do is, the functionality of this thing will remain the same, but now I want you guys to know that this I'm going to remove this error and name states completely, because we are not going to be needing those anymore. So now this hook, which is use action state hook, is going to control the form state, is going to control the error states, and going to control the loading state of my form completely on its own. So I don't need to create any separate state. Now basically I do not have any error setter, so I'm just going to remove this part of the code, and I'm going to return the error if we have any error. Alright, now basically okay, so this I'm going to use this state to just extract error. So I'm going to name it as error, not state, so it will be more clearer to the others that what we are going to use this variable for. Now this part is done. The initialization of hook is done, but there are a few things which we need to do now. below here in the JSX part, firstly we need to make sure that we have a form tag. So this is like the requirement, that if we have to use the useActionState, we need to have a form tag in the JSX, and I am going to convert this div to form, so it's not very complicated. But the next thing is, this form tag also need to have an action. Okay, so I'm going to pass it the action which I have extracted from the hook itself, which is the submit action. I'm going to pass the submit action here. Alright, that is the first step. After that, what we need to do is basically, we need to figure out all the inputs inside the form tag from where we need to collect the information from. So currently I only have one input, but we can also have more than one. So now one of the most interesting thing, and very, one thing that I really like about this hook, that we do not need to care about the value and the on change function and then that input, and we can completely forget about that part. So we do not need to worry about setting the value of the input and then controlling it in like the controlled input way. So we do not need to do that. We're just going to pass a name property to it, and we have to make sure that it has to be the name property. Now the name could be anything. For example, if it's email, so you can put the email or username or whatever, but for now I'm just going to name it name. Alright, you can have it literally anything. The next thing is the button on which you want to call the submit action. So you don't need to pass the on click event on it like directly, because we have already passed the action to the form tag. So I am basically going to remove this on click event from here, and I am going to we need to have the property type as submit here for sure, because this is the only way that this hook will know that on click of this button we need to perform the submit action. So we need to have a button inside our form with the type as submit. Only then the submit action will be triggered. Alright, so I'm going to remove this handle submit function, and I have saved it now, and everything seems to be perfect. So basically, you guys can see that I am only using one hook, and this hook is controlling literally everything, including the data and the loading states and the error states. So now basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to type a name like John, and I'm going to hit the submit, and you guys saw that loading happened for literally 2 seconds because of this set timeout, and after that we saw the loading state, which means the loading state works absolutely fine, and also like the form got reset after the submit action is completed. So what the use of this error, like this is like a dummy submit action, but I can also show you, like for example I am sending something like unable to process or unable to submit, which means that we are not able to perform the action because of some reason or something. So I'm going to like return this message, so which is going to be stored in this variable error, which I'm displaying here at the bottom. Alright, so let me save this, and let me type the name again, and let me submit. Alright, so you guys can see that after 2 seconds I'm able to see that unable to submit. So alright, it's not necessary that we need to that we can only have error state in here. We can literally store anything we want, so whatever gets returned from this function is going to be stored in this state, so we need to make sure of that. The another thing, very important thing, is that how would we access the input values inside our form. Alright, so basically the submit handler we have passed inside as a first argument of useActionState. This function has the first value as the previous state or the current state, we can name it anything, and the second value as the form data. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to console these values down to show you guys that what it actually stores. So firstly I'll show you guys how to extract the values from the form. So for example, currently we only have one input, which is the name input. So I am going to create a variable name submitted name. Alright, and that is going to be the form data dot get, and now we need to pass a string which needs to be exactly equal to the name we have passed in here, which is basically the name. It could also be email or phone or anything. So this is going to be our submitted name, and now I will console like the current state. Sorry, the name of the variable I used is previous state, and I'm also going to show you guys the submitted name. So let me save it and let me open the console. So now basically I'm again going to type the name and I'm going to hit the submit. Recently, like the last action that I did, I have stored this value unable to submit in my error state. So that is like my previous state currently, but in the beginning it would be undefined, or you can also define any initial state as the second argument to this hook. So basically if the second argument I pass null, so the initial state is going to be null. If I store any string or anything, so that is going to be initial state of this variable. But otherwise, recently I have stored this one, so this is going to be like the previous state, and new state is also going to be the same because I'm again returning the same thing. But the second thing, which is the important part to notice, is the submitted name. So that is going to be what basically we have extracted from the form. So from the form we have extracted the name as John, so we can clearly see that that name is consoled here, which is John. Alright, so basically let's say that I can also resolve it as submitted name is, and I can say like submitted name. So I have done the string interpolation, and now what I'm resolving is basically going to be is not exactly an error but an information that what is the submitted name, or it could be literally anything or any action you want to perform. But currently I will just do it to show you guys that we can also do it in this way. And let me save this, and now if I type the name and hit the submit button, so you can see after 2 seconds I can see the message which is submitted name is John, which is stored in this variable error. Alright, so okay, that's like most part of it. But one more thing I want to explain about useActionState, which is also like an amazing thing about it, that is basically that we cannot just access the pending state in the data just inside the component we have declared the useActionState. So basically we can access this pending state in this data or this action literally anywhere inside any of the child component of this component. So let's say let's take an example that, for example, our button is a child component. It's not directly an HTML button, which is going to be the case for most of the applications. So let's say it's not directly there HTML button, so let's say it's a child component. So I'm going to create a quick child component in here saying custom button, and it returns, basically it is going to return this exact button. Alright, so I'm just going to remove that code from there. So now this is a child component, and I'm going to call this custom button here. Alright, now inside this child component I want to access the pending state. First of all, I want to know that what if the pending state is true or not. So in that case there is another hook which we can use anywhere inside any of the child components. So make sure that you don't use that hook directly inside the component where you have declared the useActionState. You only have to use it inside the child components of that component. So now basically I will use that hook which the name of that hook is useFormStatus. The another thing to notice is that we are not going to import that hook from React, so we need to import that hook from React DOM. So we need to import that hook, which is useFormStatus, and we need to import it from React DOM. Okay, now inside this hook we can literally access a lot of things. We can access data, we can access action, we can access pending state. So currently I'm only interested in pending state, so basically the variable for that is pending, so I'm going to extract the pending value. So I'm going to remove this one is pending. I'm just going to write the pending here. All right, so basically this is it. So we didn't have to pass any of the props down. We didn't have to do any of that kind of messy job that we used to do earlier. So now this hook is going to take care of literally, everything. So now again, the submit button can be down to any level of the hierarchy inside this form tag. So it's going to find that button with the action type and run that action on click of that. And again, the inside any level of the child component inside this form tag, we can extract the pending states, we can extract the data. So that is something that I feel that is really amazing and very useful. Now basically I'm going to run this function again, and you guys can see it will work exactly the same with no difference. So I'm going to write the name John again. So let me write something else like Sarah this time, and if I submit this, so you guys can see the loading state remain the same, so I can still access the loading state, and now the new submitted name is Sarah. So you guys can see that stored in here. So I think that is pretty much it about the hook useActionState. So I think I've explained literally everything about it. So I know that this is really useful when you have to deal with forms and really complicated forms. So when we start creating states for such complicated forms, where we also have checkboxes, we have normal inputs and everything, so it gets really messy and tricky to store all that kind of information and then pass on change events on every single of those inputs. So I think that this hook made our lives really simpler. So I really prefer to use this one instead of storing the states directly in useState. So I barely use useStates for any kind of form actions. So I think that I was able to explain it very clearly. So let me know if you guys do not understand anything or I have any doubt. Thank you so much for watching this video.